It puts the lotion in the basket. Holy, go hunt a deer or something. What's up, adventurers? Welcome back to the channel. I am your host, The Green Knight. This is my co-host and research assistant, Bartholomew. And tonight we're going to be taking a look at some RPG horror stories. Bartholomew decided to dig up a very spicy one for us today. I don't know if I can say every word of the title out loud on YouTube. That's how spicy it is. So, trigger warning. Normally this is about neckbeards, but sometimes the neckbeard and RPG horror stories Venn diagram is just a circle. So, that being said, I think there's going to be some racism and bigotry and mustache man antics, if you know what I mean. So we're going to dive into the story and see how cringy it gets. From user Japadev. Racist murder hobo turned out to be a neo mustache man in real life. See what I'm saying?
That's a spicy meatball!
This all started in a high school Dungeons & Dragons game. I got all my friends who were interested and started a Norse mythology-inspired campaign with me as the DM. That's cool. Norse mythology is one of my favorite pantheons, and I would definitely be down to play in this. Like a barbarian inspired by Thor, or a rogue inspired by Loki, or something like that. I think this could be really fun. Or an Odin wizard. Anyway, we created a Discord server for everyone to make characters, come up with backstories, learn about rules, etc. It was great. But then, I got a message from the barbarian asking if one of his other friends could join. I said yeah, so he was added to the Discord. I mean, generally, the more the merrier in a D&D campaign, especially if you don't have too many players. Sometimes it's hard to get a good group together, so I can see why you're initially okay with this. But, unbeknownst to me or the barbarian, this player ended up being a racist, sexist, incel, neo-Nazi, and murder hobo. That is a lot of adjectives. And none of those adjectives are good adjectives. But before we get into all that, let's introduce the players of this story. Me, he/they, the Dungeon Master. Barbarian, he/him, my best friend who invited the problem player, playing a Goliath barbarian. Warlock, he/them, not that important to the story, he was playing a tiefling warlock. Sorcerer, he/him, also not that important to the story, playing an Aasimar sorcerer. Okay, so two superfluous characters. Wizard, he/them, barbarian's former friend, and the titular neo-Nazi. There he is. There's the actual main character. He was playing an elf wizard, and the elf part will be important later. Yeah, like, not to stereotype elves. If you like playing elves, that's fine. I love playing elves too. But if any race in D&D is gonna be bigoted, it's probably gonna be elves. I'm sure there's other ones that are more bigoted, but I'm not super deep into like the race lore of D&D. A bit more about Wizard outside of the game. The Barbarian told me that the Wizard had already played Dungeons & Dragons before, so I thought it would be good to have an experienced player at the table. At school, I would usually see him reading a book about the Holocaust, which I at first thought he just read because he liked history. Which I've mentioned in a previous video, it's fine if you like history, but not if you're obsessed with Mustache Man. I didn't know much about him, so when Barbarian asked me if he could join, I was a bit hesitant to add someone who is basically a stranger. But having 4 people in the party sounded better than having 3, so I let him join. Yeah, like I mentioned before, like you want a nice rounded party. But sometimes it's better to have a smaller party and have no racists in it than to have a party full of racists. He told me he wanted to play a high elf wizard. His backstory sounded pretty interesting. He was a noble whose house was banished because his father was accused of murder. Now he was having to make do as an adventurer far from the life of luxury he had before. He gave off an air of snobbery and entitlement, so I thought he could have a cool arc about learning to live as a commoner and returning to his house, now more humble and conscious of the working class folk. I actually really liked his backstory because it gave me a lot of plot hooks to work with. Too bad the player ended up being terrible. Whoa, that is a paragraph. Okay. After characters were made, we began the campaign. It was fairly normal at first. The players fought off an army of Goliaths sent by a cult of cloud giants who worshipped a dead god. The party then began to make the long journey to a hidden dwarf city near where the tribes were, with the help of a dwarven draugr who showed them the way. I thought draugrs were like zombies, but maybe I'm wrong. Along the way, I saw the first hint of Wizard's violent disposition. We encountered a group of 4 Goliaths from the cult, whom the party killed. After the battle, the Wizard decided to grab 2 of the corpses and put them on his horse. Poor horse. Aren't they giants? I asked why, and he said that he could use them for some magical experiments and to study Goliath anatomy. The reason he only took 2 out of the 4 is because one had escaped and the other was burnt to a crisp by the sorcerer. They then headed off in the direction of the mountain where the dwarf city was hidden. When they got to the mountain, it was obviously very cold up there. I described all the characters shivering except for the barbarian. This was, of course, because he was a Goliath and thus had the trait Mountain-born, giving him resistance to cold damage. So naturally, the Wizard decided that the only logical thing to do was to take the 2 corpses of the Goliaths they had killed and skin them and turn their skin into cold-resistant clothing. Then wear said cold-resistant skin clothing in a party that had another Goliath in it. It puts the lotion in the basket. Holy fuck, bro. Go hunt a deer or something. 1, that would give you way less trouble, and 2, you're not wearing the flesh of one of your teammates' people. That is messed up. When I and the rest of the party were disgusted by this psychopathic behavior, I joked about how he should change his subclass to necromancer, which he later did, and he simply said something about how there's nothing inherently wrong with wearing the skin of a sapient being as clothing. At least he used sapient right, but holy shit, yes there is. And that it was a completely logical thing to do. Or some stupid ass thing that you would expect to hear from a hyper-logical evil AI in a movie.
No.
I said that he needed to get a tanner to turn it into clothing. Okay, yeah, at least hinder him a little bit. So when we arrived at the dwarf city, he said, I would like to look for a tanner. At this point, I should probably mention that the reason this dwarf city is so isolationist-y is because in the world of my campaign, there's a war going on. The Goliath tribes that live near the dwarves aren't involved in the war, so they were allowed to freely enter the dwarven city. And this city was absolutely filled with Goliaths. I think at this point the Wizard said something about how his character thought that Goliaths and dwarves were inferior races or something. So the Wizard walks up to the tanner and asks him to turn the Goliath skin into clothing. I would also like to mention that the specific sub-race the Wizard was playing was a moon high elf, which are on the opposite side of the war from the mountain dwarves. The tanner called for the guards. Yeah, as he should. Like, that's just... that is zero self-awareness at all. So after that, the Wizard had to cover up all his blue skin and hide his face. Ha! How does it feel to be on the receiving end of the racism? It's what you deserve.
Well, well, well. How the turntables...
They then had to do a quest for the mayor in exchange for the Wizard getting pardoned for, as far as the city knew, murdering 2 innocent Goliaths and skinning them. Yeah, he's lucky he didn't get put to death. They investigated a temple to the dead god that the villains worshipped. They fought some animated armors left by the cultists as defense, and found an insane were-rat selling magic items, who the party immediately adopted. His name is Wormir, and he sounds like Dr. Doofenshmirtz.
Bury the platypus!
They then confronted a minor villain who was a Goliath wizard from the cult, named General Mordenyor. I like these Nordic sounding names, OP. These are pretty cool. And got a map to the place where Mordenyor had an army of mind-controlled soldiers and a Zorn keeping an eye on them. They then killed all the mind-control soldiers by pretending to be a general and then ordering them all to kill each other. Kind of fucked up, but hey, the Warlock's Fiend petition needed souls, so what can you do? Also, not out of the realm of Norse mythology. There's a story where Odin tricks a bunch of farmers into killing each other with their own scythes, so it's within the realm of possibility. They then escaped and went to what they thought was the big bad evil guy's fortress, but it turned out to be a decoy! Ooh, surprise. After finding out this mysterious shadowy figure called Utjot the Mighty they had been hunting was fake, they escaped into the wilderness. Now, do you remember, dear reader, when I joked about the wizard becoming a necromancer? Yes, you also spoiled that he does eventually become one. Well, that ended up coming back to bite me as the wizard asked me if he could change his subclass to necromancer. This would cause the wizard to become a murder hobo, if you don't already consider becoming a fantasy Leatherface to be murder hobo behavior, which I wouldn't since the Goliaths were killed in self-defense. So more of a self-defense hobo, still creepy though. Yeah, okay, killing them initially was self-defense. Skinning them and trying to use their skin as clothing is murder hobo behavior. While the party was camping out, I had the barbarian's totem spirit, oh by the way he was a totem warrior, appear and wake up the barbarian. Okay, but which totem was it? The spirit then ran off, leaving a trail of glowing footprints behind it. I can't get immersed. I don't know what kind of footprints I'm looking for. Is it a bear? Is it eagle footprints? Because that would be ridiculous, the little hoppy. I expected the barbarian to wake up the party, but instead he committed the cardinal D&D sin of splitting the party, leaving the wizard and the warlock unsupervised. The sorcerer couldn't come. When the rest of the party woke up, they went looking for the barbarian. Along the way, they decided to go towards the pillar of smoke they saw over a hill. As it turns out, this was a wandering trader in a giant boar-drawn cart that served as a mobile weapons shop. Cool. Immediately after I described the cart, the wizard was already plotting to burn it to the ground. Why? The warlock seemed to just be going along with what the wizard said. I encouraged them to at least talk to the merchant before they murdered him. They obliged and walked over to the counter of the cart shop. Inside was a hill dwarf blacksmith, who the wizard immediately threatened. The dwarf refused to be intimidated, and in response, the wizard cast Burning Hands, incinerating the dwarf's shop. They then took all the weapons and zombified the innocent dwarf. Dude, what are you gonna do with that many weapons anyway? Like, you need one sword, you need a bow, and maybe like a dagger in your boot. You don't need a whole lot. It's not like Zelda where shit breaks, which is a dumb mechanic and I don't like. But you don't need to kit yourself out with every weapon you can think of. You certainly don't need multiples of weapons, because you can only swing one weapon at a time. And you're usually only proficient in one or two kinds of weapons anyway. After catching up with the barbarian, they found a tree that was a holy site to a hunter god that the barbarian worshipped. Inside they found a minotaur skeleton that was being puppeteered by vines. That's terrifying and kind of cool.
This is a cool way to die!
After defeating it, they found a portal that led to a different tree. This tree was a gateway between all the holy sites of all the gods and was guarded by a tribe of wood elves. Immediately when the party got to the village, the wizard said something about wood elves being an inferior race compared to high elves. He doesn't even like people of his own friggin' species. That's insane. That is some next level Ubermensch kind of shit. Just completely unprompted. Now, I don't really want racism as a theme in my campaign, so naturally I brought Wizard aside and talked to him about toning down his character from straight up racist to just snobbish rich guy. He complied maliciously. When we returned, the party was brought before the leader of the tribe, who informed them that it was forbidden for outsiders to use that tree. So the group had to compete in a hunting competition to become honorary members of the tribe. This would take place at dawn, so I let the players get in a long rest before the games. The wizard, being an elf, didn't sleep as long as the others, so when it came time for the competition, he woke up the others. And the way he did this was to kick them awake and say, "Wake up, wagies!" Well, I did tell him to act like a rich snob. Calling them wagies is fucking gold, though. They then began the competition. The leader of one of the other teams tried to say hi to our team. Unfortunately, the wizard happened to be the one standing next to this NPC. So when we tried to shake hands with the wizard, he just stood there and awkwardly left the guy hanging. Bruh, don't leave him hanging. Was this the wizard trying to be more subtle about his wood elf racism? Was he just being a dick? Who knows? Fortunately, the barbarian stepped forward and shook the elf's hand in the wizard's stead. The barbarian, despite the class stereotypes, had sort of become the face of the party. He had succeeded so many charisma checks that he had earned the title The Negotiator, because Star Wars reference. Oh yeah, Obi-Wan Kenobi. The Negotiator!
Yes, the Negotiator, General Kenobi.
He didn't even have a particularly high charisma. He just rolled well at the time. Tangents aside, the tribe's druid cast scrying on all the competitors to watch the games unfold. The objective was to hunt down and kill a mysterious clawed beast, which my players figured out was a werewolf with a nat 20 investigation check on some claw marks and footprints. Which was really funny because this entire tribe of elite hunters couldn't figure it out, but these random strangers showed up and figured it out instantly. In a cool little hunting minigame inspired by a video from a YouTuber called Monarch's Factory. When the party tracked down and killed the werewolf, they were about to head back when one of the other teams found their way into the clearing that the party was in. And this wasn't the nice team whose leader tried to talk to the party and shook hands with Mr. "Ah yes, the Negotiator" over there. No, this was the mean team who were dicks to the party in the blacksmith shop. And turns out, the leader had a bit of a vendetta against the werewolf and wanted to be the one to kill him because she had been infected with a werewolf curse by him. Oh, kill her too! No werewolves allowed. And so the party had to fight her as well. After killing her, the wizard was annoyed at her for attacking them and decided to have another one of his serial killer moments as he looked to me and said, "I eat her corpse." Why? What? I, horrified, reminded him that he was being watched by the druid's scrying spell. He reluctantly decided not to commit cannibalism that day. Cannibalism, I feel like would work better. Either way, yeah, don't eat other people. That's not okay.
It's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong.
After winning the hunting competition and returning to the village, the chieftain asked to have a word with the party. Now that they had proven themselves, the chief wanted them to go around the world and find all the holy sites of the gods and reactivate them, which would stop the war somehow. Yeah. I basically had no idea how the main plot was going to go besides evil giant cult trying to resurrect a god. So I just kind of ripped off a D&D actual play I was watching called Adventures of Avnia from a channel called Arcane Arcade. Imitation is the best form of flattery. Except in that one, they were trying to find crystals that all correlated to the gods. I mean, that's just kind of like a basic D&D fantasy thing. Like, I had a super long campaign where we had to go and purify wells all over the continent or whatever. Like, it's just a gimmick to get you traveling. Like, don't feel like you're stealing. But regardless, my players didn't know that. So off they went to the next holy site. The closest holy site was a forge shrine dedicated to the hill dwarf god of blacksmithing and earth, no relation to the mountain dwarves from earlier. This dwarven kingdom was on the same side as the moon elves. Okay, so hopefully your psychopathic racist companion fits right in. So the wizard wouldn't have to worry about getting the cops called on him this time, though the dwarf that the wizard killed and zombified was from this kingdom, so I was planning to have that bite him in the ass later. This was before I learned the lesson that solving murder hobo problems with in-game solutions wasn't the best idea. Yeah, maybe just talk to him outside a game and be like, dude, you need to calm the fuck down. But I don't know, consequences for your actions can sometimes work. When the players got there, they met up with an old friend of the wizard's father, a nobleman who was sent to talk about war plans with the city's mayor. He was excited to see the wizard again after his exile, but the wizard acted oddly cold towards him, which I guess is just how he acted to everyone, but you would have thought he'd be happy to see another moon elf considering how much he seems to think they were superior races to others. The elf nobleman, and he's even in the same class as him, like if anyone should get along with him, it should be this guy. The elf nobleman told the players how the portal tree that connected this holy site to the main tree was stolen, along with a bunch of treasure, by a dwarf named Fafnir. Does he turn into a dragon? I hope he turns into a dragon. Because I wasn't even being subtle with my Norse mythology inspirations at this point, and was just straight up ripping off the Volsunga saga. Much like Fafnir in mythology, the dwarves' greed had turned him into a dragon! Fuck yeah! Hear that, Bartholomew? Specifically a green dragon, because Norse dragons tended to be more associated with poison than fire. Yeah, they spit like acid and shit like that. He had taken refuge within a volcano. There was an abandoned mine shaft that connected to the volcano, which they could use to get to the dragon's lair. But the dragon was a bit higher level than the players could handle. So I had them be joined by a dwarven cleric. Whoop, clerics were cool. This cleric was a woman, and in my world, dwarven women have beards, as Tolkien intended. But either because of the fact that she had a beard, the racism against every other race, or because of garden variety misogyny, the wizard decided to start insulting the cleric by calling her a femoid, whatever that's supposed to mean. This guy is on some bad internet forums. Like, the fact that he's acting so racist in-game and has just used the word femoid tells me a lot about the kind of circles he frequents on the internet. And they're not good circles. Yeah, I would cut this guy out of the group. No explanation, just be like, hey man, I don't think it's working out. And I'm gonna be wary of you whenever you come to school and reach for your backpack. Like those kind of people. It was, I think, at this point that we went on a break and he tried to show us all some anime girl and say something to the effect of, 2D women are better than real women. See, I told you this guy's a fucking neckbeard. Because apparently the racism wasn't enough and this guy had to be a sexist incel weirdo as well. Yep. He has combined neckbeards and RPG horror stories into one epic tale. You're a good research assistant, Bartholomew. I gotta give him a raise now. Though, to be fair, those things do go hand in hand. Yeah, exactly. It was at this point that I definitely should have kicked him, since it was clear that him being a weirdo wasn't just in character. That's what I said. But the barbarian was still friends with him, so I didn't want to kick him out yet. No, I think if you talk to Barbarian, he would understand. Alright, we're almost done here. Let's see how bad this gets. The next session, the players entered a volcanic mine dungeon I had made, accompanied reluctantly by the dwarf cleric. Okay, let me just say, having a cleric on your team is golden. Like, having someone who throws heals at you is a godsend. I will never be upset if someone is playing a cleric on my team. Like, never. Because I usually play squishy spell boys. Like, sorcerer is my favorite class. But I am also very aggressive in combat. So I need those healies. The players did some convoluted minecart puzzles that they brute forced to win. Fought some fire and earth elementals. Found out that the volcano they were inside was half of the corpse of a giant god that the bad guys were trying to resurrect, and eventually came across the dragon. That's cool. I think that's in reference to the fact that Odin and his brothers made the earth out of the corpse of a giant, and like his brains were clouds and shit like that. I like this OP. He's incorporated Norse myth into his world really well. I like it. Curled around the still beating heart of the dead god. Well, then he's not dead, is he, OP? Curled around the still beating heart of the dead god with piles of treasure all around it. The session ended with the dragon lunging at the party, and that ended up being the last session of the campaign. Aw, cliffhanger? Because one day, I got a text from Barbarian. It read, "Okay, Wizard is officially a degenerate."
It's official.
When I asked him why, he told me that another friend had found out Wizard was a neo who believed that Nazis should have succeeded in wiping out the Jews. Yup, cut him out. Like, fuck. I don't even know what to say to that. And that's when I realized that his elves are the superior race thing wasn't meant to be a flaw that he would overcome. No, that's just his personality. Elves are the Ubermensch, and that's fucked up. When someone tells you who they are, believe them. Like, it's fun to play evil, fucked up characters, but you also gotta draw a line between fantasy and reality. And the fact that he was so obsessed with Mustache Man and the Holocaust, and also playing that up in your game, yeah, I think the signs were there pretty early on. So, but I don't blame you, OP. Like, I notoriously like to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I try and trust and see the best in everybody. But, yeah, that's a clear-cut sign. So, needless to say, we kicked him. The campaign ended up fizzling out. I kind of lost motivation because of the aforementioned not really knowing what the main story was going to be thing. So now, that party is forever frozen in time, the jaws of a green dragon flying towards their face. But I like to imagine that in that moment the wizard was so startled that he fell back into the moat of lava that surrounded the arena. Yeah, good. TLDR, psychopathic murder hobo, elf supremacist wizard keeps killing, skinning, and almost cannibalizing NPCs and being racist to every non-elf. Even to other elves too, though. Eventually turns out to be a neo-Nazi in real life, so we kick him. Yeah, some people are just messed up, and I truly think that this guy has been on some really bad internet forums or some bad chat sites, because the fact that he used the word femoid, that is a very incel-coded word. Like, people outside of the incel circles don't really use language like that, and the Venn diagram of neckbeards and incels and neo-Nazis overlap quite a bit. So, yeah, I think this guy needs to get off the internet for a little while and maybe go meet some people in real life. Like, yeah, literally go touch grass, go talk to people from other cultures and stuff. I'm not sure where you're from, OP, but like, if he lives in a city like a big city with lots of different people, going out and meeting people of other cultures can really broaden your mind and show you that these ideas that circulate on the internet about everybody are just wrong. All these racist ideas that are perpetuated aren't the majority of people in those groups. You know what I'm saying? Like, it takes a few bad apples to spoil the bunch, and that's where all these ideas come from. It's like, oh yeah, you see one guy from a specific group do something bad, and therefore all of them are bad. But no, that's not how the world works. Like, one bad actor is not a group of people. And meeting people from other cultures and other walks of life can really open your eyes to that. Like, admittedly, I grew up in a pretty much all-white town, and when I moved down to Toronto, I got to meet people from all over the world, and it's so now when I hear racist shit, I'm like, you're just ignorant and stupid, and you clearly have not met anybody outside of your own group, because people are just people, and I like to believe that all people have like good inside them, and no one is deliberately out here to be a dick, I guess. I don't know how to say it. Like, so yeah, being this kind of bigoted asshole towards other races or women and shit like that, it's just dumb. And it shows that you're ignorant of the world around you. And that you spend way too much time in these echo chambers on the internet. So really, if you have a mindset like this, I highly suggest that you unplug and go touch grass. Like, get outside and meet some people. But that's all. I'm ranting now. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed cringing at this story. I don't want to say enjoyed the story because this character's kind of a dick, but I hope that it satisfied your desires for cringe, because this story did a really good job combining RPG horror stories and NeckBeard stories, and that just tickles my fancy to the umpteenth degree. So I hope you had as much fun as I did listening to the story and cringing at it. And I think that's going to be it for me and Bartholomew today. I hope you're all drinking lots of water, doing lots of push-ups, and until next time, stay safe. Oh, I'm getting texts from my D&D group right now. They want to play tonight.